everybody, I'm Sarah and I'm a recorder player. Today's video is a little bit different. A lot of you leave in the comments different questions, you want to know things. That is the nature of a question. I thought it would be interesting to do a question and answer style video so that everyone can hear all of the answers, because that's what I definitely have. Thank you to everybody who sent in questions on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Let's get started. First up we have Sarah Jeffery. My name is Sarah Jeffery. Okay, from Dina Morvin, she says, thanks for your video, thanks for watching. Are all of your flutes chromatic? Yes, the recorder is a chromatic instrument. We can play all of the chromatic notes. And so on. Some people refer to it as a diatonic instrument because to make the chromatics we have to get involved with a few cross fingerings, but yeah, it can play every note, so yeah, I think it's chromatic. Actually, I would even go further and say the recorder is a microtonal instrument. You don't have any keys or anything in the way on a lot of the models, so you can actually create any tone. Some of my flutes are, however, not really chromatic, and these are my Irish whistles. I grew up playing folk music and I play a lot of tin whistle, and these are diatonic instruments. So if you put your fingers up and down, you just hear a diatonic scale. You can, of course, make chromatic notes, but you can do that by half holing or by some funny cross fingerings again. And I play a lot of Renaissance consort instruments. They are in theory chromatic, but then the chromatic notes are a bit more difficult because of the shape of the bore and the fingerings. The fact that they often have single holes instead of double holes means that some of the chromatic notes are more difficult to produce than on a Baroque instrument. So when we're playing Bach with all of his dissonances, we have some exciting moments. Okay, Laura 2905, hi. She says she is studying a lot about transposition and reading clefs, sometimes up to 7 different clefs, playing with people performing in other tunings, and asks, is it really necessary to be able to read all of the clefs in full consciousness of the real notes you're playing? So for example, if you take your voice flute in D, transposing into that random clef, should you know exactly what notes your fingers are producing? I would say it's much more important to know the relationship your notes have to each other and to the rest of the music. For example, it's important to know if you're playing in a chord, are you the root, the third or the fifth? Are you a dissonance or a consonance? What is your voice doing within the music? That, for me, is much more important than knowing I'm playing an E, and now I'm playing a B flat, and now I'm playing a D. I will admit something. On my F alto and C soprano or tenor, I know what notes I'm playing, but when I'm playing recorders in G or D or B flat, if you stopped me at any given moment and said, what note is that? I would have to figure it out. So think for yourself, is it useful? If you're learning to play in 7 clefs, what is the purpose of memorizing the names of all of those notes? If you know what relationship your notes and your voice has to the whole harmonic structure, and you know the name of the notes in at least one other transposition, so if need be you can work it out, I think that's fine. My next question is from Eleanor, and she says, as the parent of a small child, it's really hard to find the time to practice. Do you have tips for flash practice, 2 to 10 minutes at a time, and silent practice? Say you only have 2 minutes, what can you do? Well, when I'm practicing, I always want to play through all of the things that I can play really well, but try and identify the difficult passages that need attention. Say you have 2 minutes. First, look at your difficult passage and try and sing it through. Thinking about the rhythm and if the notes are going up and down. Then you're going to take your instrument, first check the key and check the tempo, then play it through once, really listening to what you're doing. Afterwards, give yourself a compliment, that went really well, and give yourself a point to improve on. Okay, I'm going to check that fingering. Then you play it again, really listening to what you're doing. Same compliment, okay, that fingering was better, but what about the dynamics there? And you play it through for the third time. So in that way, that's probably about 2 minutes. You've really gone into one difficult section, but you've given yourself the time to keep reflecting on it and improving. Silent practice, you can do a couple of things. You can take your recorder and a piece of paper, carefully roll it up and put it in the Win way. You can play silently. I also find it really helps to go through a piece without blowing, just doing the fingers. You find that you actually have to concentrate a lot more to get your fingers coordinated because you don't have your ears as a reference point. My third tip would be to sing your pieces through in your head. For example, in the shower, when you're doing the washing up, when you're driving, that can actually really help a lot. Thomas N asked me, I would like to know whether you recommend using the German or the Baroque fingering system. I would say if you're going to start learning the recorder, always go for the Baroque fingering system. Most recorders are actually in this system. Say you start on the soprano in the German system, but later you want to move on to an alto and a tenor and a basset and a sopranino. It's a lot harder to find other recorders in that system. So you're going to have to end up relearning anyway. And since most recorder players play with the Baroque system, if you're playing together on a German system, that's going to make tuning a little bit harder because you've got inherently different instruments. So I would go for Baroque. A question from Marco, he says, which alto or soprano model of any brand would you recommend below £500? So that's around €650. How many dollars? I don't know. I would recommend a few different brands. First is Mollenhauer. I love Mollenhauer recorders. I would either go for the Adri's Dream recorder, the kind of normal fingerings with a more Renaissance style building, so you have a really nice big sound. And for both soprano and alto, you can get fully wooden models. The alto, for example, I found here for €250, so that's around £200. Oh, I have one. This is my Mollenhauer Dream Fruit wooden alto. If you would like a bit more of a Baroque sound, I could recommend the Mollenhauer Denner instruments. I love Denner instruments. If I'm being a recorder nerd, which I am, they are my favourite builder. And I have found these in the Early Music Shop in England. Yeah, there's one in Pearwood for £300, one in Palisander, that's a harder wood, for £450. You could also try the Moeck Rottenberg models, they're very nice. My very first soprano, actually my very first wooden recorder, was a Moeck soprano in maple, and it cost £90. I think my mum has it now. For sopranos, I could say the same, instruments by Mollenhauer or by Moeck. My soprano is actually by Yamaha, and I really like it. It's a dark wood, I think it's grenadilla, and when I bought it, it was £500, but that was about 12 years ago. You could also look at instruments by Kung and by Coolsma. I hope that's useful. Anthony Riakiotakis has asked, any tips for trills between C and C sharp and low D and D sharp? Now, because you've specified low C and C sharp and low D and D sharp, I'm going to assume you're talking about soprano fingering, so if not, ask me again and I'll make another video. Because I have an alto, I'm going to talk in alto fingerings. Indeed, trilling between this is no picnic, and it doesn't really sound that nice always. My first tip would be look to see if it's acceptable to make the trill a little bit wider. Start the trill with the G to the G sharp and then expand it from the G to the A, like this. that by using timing and by adjusting our air pressure when we widen the trill, we hear something a bit more like this. In Baroque music, we start the trill on the upper note, and then the trilling back and forth is usually to create a dissonance with the harmony. So what we want to do is establish the first note, that upper appoggiatura. Then when we go into the trill, we're going to go once back to the actual G sharp, and then when we keep trilling, we're going to make it wider between the G and the A. But because we're in the trill, we don't really experience it as we've gone from the G sharp to the A, we're just trilling, and then we're going to land. So that should still have the effect of the first note, the dissonance, the trill, and the landing, but without having to say it is a context where you do want to have those exact notes. When you are moving between double holes, you have a couple of options of how to do that. You can move just your finger, which I don't like to do, because when you're only moving your finger, you're creating this bent movement, and you're actually then digging your finger into the recorder and creating extra pressure. What I prefer to do is move slightly more from my wrist, like that. And you can keep your fingers very, very light and relaxed, which means in trilling it's much easier. A question from Bernat Martinez: do you work as a musician or in another job? I consider myself really lucky in that music is my full-time job. I get to do music all day, every day, which I'm really happy and grateful about. However, it is a lot of work. What do you actually do as a professional recorder player? I split my work into 3 main areas. The largest of this is playing. I play concerts, I do gigs, I perform also in theatre projects. I perform with my own ensembles, also as a guest musician with other professional ensembles or as a soloist. That is section 1. Section 2 of what I do is education. As you can probably tell, I love teaching. I have 1 day a week of my own students where I teach the recorder. I also work in a concert hall in their education department where I am giving music workshops on electronic sound installations. I also do workshops and playing days and conducting recorder orchestras and masterclasses and summer schools and any kind of education thing you can think of. And then a small part of my business is also writing about music. I write for a few different publications like the Dutch recorder magazine Blokfluitist, Tempo, Music Journal, Primephonic, that's a music website, and I write articles on music. So yes, music is my job and my life, but I love it. These were just a few of the questions you guys sent in. Thank you so much for contacting me. Keep them coming, and every so often I'm going to do a little question and answer. Don't forget, all of the answers I've given today are not set in stone. If you disagree or you have other experiences or other ideas, that's absolutely fine. Feel free to discuss it in the comments below. As always, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking me. Have a lovely day. Bye!